Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some relationship stories. If you do love a relationship Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, that subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Let's crack straight on with today's first story. And I'm not afraid to admit I've had a couple of cheeky sherries too. And our first story comes from Throwaway New Car Totaled. And it's called, How Do I, 28 female, tell my husband, 27 male, his brand new car has been totaled. And this story does follow with an update. This happened earlier today and I've been an emotional wreck all day, so I'm sorry if I ramble too much or leave out some details. I'll respond to any relevant questions and edit my post to include them. The long version. This will probably only make sense if I tell you a bit about my ex-friend. Let's call her Lucy. I met her in freshman year of college and she was part of a larger friend group because we all lived in the same hall. For as long as I've known her, she has had pretty significant mood swings. Sometimes she was a super sweet and caring person, but when she was stressed out, she would become verbally and physically abusive and blame everything in the universe if there's something negative happening in her life. Her abusive side has gotten progressively worse since college. I could write a whole book about Lucy, but I'll spare you the details because it's not directly related to the advice I'm trying to get. Over the last couple, each of the people in our friend group have cut contact with her, and I think I was probably the last one to still respond to her. Every conversation I have with her goes in circles, and she ends up back in a state of anger and frustration, and I usually hang up when she hurls verbal abuse at me. I met my husband about 3 years ago, and he has always been incredibly supportive of me. I have vented to him many times about Lucy because interactions with her always leave with me feeling emotionally drained and feeling like I'm going crazy. He has encouraged me many times to cut contact with her because it's not worth setting yourself on fire to keep her warm. So earlier this month, I blocked her. Earlier today, I ran into Lucy at the grocery store and she confronted me about why I haven't been responding to her. She started screaming, so I left the grocery store and went home. But as I was pulling into my apartment parking lot, I see a car speeding towards me. Sure enough, it was Lucy's car. I think she was aiming for me, but I steered the car away, so she ended up crashing into the rear door behind me and destroying both our cars. Before I was able to compose myself after the crash, she drove off with the front part of her car missing. I called the police and told them everything. Thankfully, I'm uninjured. All afternoon I've been calling insurance and trying to look for options to get the car fixed. Nothing is finalized yet, but the insurance agent said, judging by the pictures, he's not optimistic that it's fixable or worth fixing. I know I need to tell my husband, but how do I tell him the car that he's been saving up for years and then spending months waiting for to arrive is damaged beyond repair? Especially because I feel partially responsible, since in hindsight, I realize I should have cut contact with Lucy years ago. A part of me knows that outwardly he'll brush it off, say that he's happy that I'm safe and that objects can be replaced, but I'm scared that he'll resent me. He loves his car, he has a strong sentimental attachment to it because it's his first car, and he's even given it a cute nickname like a pet. We joke about how it's his firstborn child. We don't have any kids yet, and it's the holidays. What kind of crap holiday present is it to find out that your brand new car that you got 2 weeks ago got totaled? I've tried looking at ways to buy him a new one, but obviously I can't make such a big financial decision without discussing it together. And the other problem is current delivery times for this car is 10 plus months. It's a Tesla for anyone wondering why it takes so long. We could buy used, but used prices are even higher than new, and the used cars have 20k plus miles on them. He's on a business trip right now and will be coming back on Friday for the holidays. I'm struggling between deciding to tell him now or telling him in person when he gets back. What words can I even use to tell him? Now, the first thing that popped into my head whilst I was reading this and was going through different ways that you could, replace the car, etc. I was thinking, surely this is what insurance for. Why are you not just going directly to the insurance route? And I know different places, insure people in different ways. Sometimes in the UK, you're insured as the person rather than the car. And I might be even wrong in saying that. I get confused myself with insurance. Whereas I know other locations actually insure the car, like I think in France they insure the car rather than the person, depending if you're a new driver, etc, etc. So that part of this story has certainly got me confused so far, and I hope that gets cleared up in some comments or the update. But then we turn to Lucy and we think, holy moly. Mood swings are like one thing, but this is another level, isn't it? There's something else going on here that obviously we can't predict right now, and again, hopefully we're gonna get cleared up in the update. But because you went no contact with her, for her to run her car purposely into you is what I'm assuming right now is absolute madness. But we're going to cover a couple of the comments first, and then we're going to move on to the update. And we're starting off with Dev246, who says, has Lucy been arrested? It sounds like you need a restraining order. To which OP replies saying, the police arrested her and called me to let them know about an hour later. Apparently it wasn't too hard because she was home and the front part of her car was missing. Diagnosed Wolf says, someone tried to kill you. Do you realize that? The reason that Lucy was arrested is because she tried to kill you. Call your husband and tell him that you're okay. Reassure him that you weren't hurt when this sociopath rammed into you at full speed. Tell him that she's been arrested and can't make another attempt on your life, that you are safe, so he doesn't need to come home. Explain to him that the car is badly damaged, but that you survived the attempted murder. Your husband is going to be relieved that you are alright. He's going to be upset about the car, sure, but probably sometime later. Hearing the news that his wife was nearly killed is going to take up his attention for a little while. Snoo Words 4839 says your insurance company should be able to get it through Lucy's insurance. She will be charged with a hit and run, and you can file a case against her and her insurance. Can you video chat with him? He needs to know ASAP. I think he should know you were basically attacked and dealing with the police. The car can be replaced, and that is the least of the issues here. Notorious Dad says, tell him Lucy's insurance will cover the cost up to her limit and your insurance will cover the rest. Relax, I love my cars, but I've never asked about the car in a wreck. Only about the people I love and those I don't know. And one more from Old Elderberry 9946 who says, well, you start by telling him that someone tried to murder you and that you are fortunately okay. Because that's actually the most important thing here. I don't care how the new car is or how much he loves it. It's ultimately a thing and replaceable. You're a person and not replaceable. Then tell him how it happened, which means you tell him about the car. If my husband told me this story just the way you wrote it out here, it probably wouldn't even occur to me to consider the state of the car at all until I saw him alive and well. What happened to you here was terrifying, and I don't think I'd be able to think about anything else until I saw my partner with my own eyes after something like that. You'll figure out what to do next together. Does she own anything? Because besides whatever insurance comes up with, and besides the criminal charges she should be facing, it seems like you should be able to sue the shit out of her. But that may not matter if she doesn't have anything to sue for. I kinda wonder if you're fixating on the car yourself just to block out the knowledge that this woman tried to kill you and could have killed you, which would be understandable. Don't get me wrong, but I think you need to tell your husband ASAP because frankly, you need support and attention right now. You've been through a traumatic experience. Yeah, the fact the car got totaled was bad, but in any universe where an angry person drives their car into yours while you're in it on purpose, just having a totaled car is the least bad of all possible outcomes. It will be okay, he will be okay, and he needs to help to make sure you are okay, because I'm not sure you are. Now, we're going to move on to the update to see what happens next. So updates. I posted earlier this week to ask for advice about how to tell my husband his new car got totaled when the ex-friend that I cut off earlier this month rammed into me. I appreciate everyone taking the time to give me advice. I wasn't thinking clearly and it was really helpful to get some online strangers to talk some sense into me. In hindsight, I was too hyper-focused on the car and didn't really fully process the fact that someone I've known for 7+ years almost actually killed me. As for breaking the news to my husband, that didn't turn out quite the way I expected. I knew that I had to tell him as soon as possible, and I was actually trying to figure out the best way to phrase it. But about 20 minutes after I made my post, he actually called me in a panic because he was afraid I was in a coma in the hospital or something. Turns out his Tesla and the phone app has a lot more bells and whistles than I knew about. It sent him notifications and videos from the car's cameras about the crash, but he didn't see them until the evening. His company has a strict policy about only company issued phones being allowed to be turned on while in the tech center office. So when he finished work and pulled out his personal phone, he was greeted by multiple notifications that a crash had occurred and links to the videos. Since by that point it had been many hours since the crash, he was terrified that I had been seriously injured. At first, he was incredibly upset with me for not calling him immediately on his work phone. After I apologised profusely and explained the whole story, his frustration turned to concern and he insisted I go to a doctor to get a full physical, even though I felt fine. He then got the first flight he could find the next morning, and he's been spending the last few days with me and taking his work meetings remotely. I've apologised a couple of times for not cutting my ex-friend Lucy off earlier before my husband came into my life, and I've apologised for the loss of his car. But each time, he just brushes it off and says something that melts my heart like, "I'm happy that the car did its job and protected you from Lucy." Or, "The car is a thing and things are replaceable, you are not." The insurance paperwork still isn't finalised yet, but it's looking increasingly likely the car will be a total loss. I think my husband placed an order, or at least is seriously contemplating placing a new order for a new car. We'll probably have to wait 10 to 12 months to get it, but in the meantime, we still have my car to drive and we'll figure something out. My husband also wants us to do some marriage counselling because he says I have a tendency to avoid or push off difficult conversations. After this week, I realise he's probably right, so we'll be exploring that early next year. As for me, I'm glad I escaped the crash mostly unscathed. I got an urgent care appointment for the next day and the doctor concluded there wasn't anything seriously wrong with me, but recommended I get a more comprehensive check from my primary care physician next week. 2 of my teeth have been hurting since Tuesday and I'm not sure if it's related to the crash. My husband suspects I might have bitten down too hard on my teeth as I was bracing myself for the crash and cracked something, but I made an appointment with a dentist next week to check. In my original post, I didn't say much about what happened with Lucy after the crash because the post was already getting long and it wasn't directly relevant to the advice I was seeking. But the police arrested her soon after the crash and called me to let me know. Apparently it was pretty easy because they found her at home. I gave them her address and the front section of her car was missing and beaten up. They asked her if she had been in an accident earlier that morning and she told them a harrowing tale about how she barely escaped a violent motorcycle gang. When the police asked her why she didn't report it or seek assistance from emergency responders, she looked like a gobsmacked goldfish. This was all told to me by the detective assigned to my case. I didn't witness the arrest myself. I've been in contact with the other people from my college friend group that also knew Lucy, and they all expressed a mix of sympathy, mild surprise and appreciation for giving them a heads up. One of my friends actually had a situation a couple of years ago where Lucy threatened to hurt my friend's dog after she cut contact with Lucy, but nothing ended up happening, so they forgot about it and moved on with life. My husband and I are searching for lawyers to help us with filing a restraining order as well as exploring other possible legal actions, but we haven't gotten many replies back yet because it's the holidays. I doubt it'd be worth the time and money to sue Lucy for damages, but it's an option we are considering. The attorneys that we have had preliminary consultations with so far have all advised us not to speak with Lucy directly, nor speak too much about the situation publicly aside from basic facts, while there's pending litigation or legal considerations, so I won't be posting any more about her in the foreseeable future. Long story short, we are overall doing pretty well. The craziness has settled down a bit and my husband and I are sticking to our planned holiday festivities. Thanks again for everyone's input and happy holidays. And there was one relevant comment where someone said in response to a comment about Lucy's ridiculous lie. And then says the strange thing is, she was actually a very good liar back in college. Our entire friend group brought her into sad stories about her childhood, hook, line and sinker. It wasn't until years later that we realised she had lied about a lot of things and everything unravelled. But maybe we were all just too naive. One of the things that did surprise me in this story is that, it only went as far as a restraining order. And I'm guessing the only reason it didn't is because it all comes down to proof and they couldn't really prove that she didn't attempt to, kill this person. But it sounds absolute madness. And I don't think it's going to be the end of this story from the way Lucy is acting already. That's the way it just feels to me. I know it might be blowing this totally out of proportion, but let's give a little clap for OP's partner here. who pretty much played everything correctly here, was concerned about their partner and expressed that and said, we need to go to therapy to talk about some of the problems we have been having as well, that seem to be not totally related to the situation at hand, but are important for their marriage. And I think that's fantastic. But what do you guys make of this one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and we'll move on to another story. Now, our next story is an Am I the Arsehole post, but I think it does cross in the relationship genre as well, and again does follow with an update. And it's from a deleted user who says, am I the arsehole for telling my girlfriend to cover up her body when strangers enter the home? I am fully aware that the title sounds sexist, but hear me out, please. My girlfriend comes from a wealthy background and grew up with maids, chefs, chauffeurs, etc. I was raised in a completely opposite environment and still adjusting to dating someone like her. When we are not with her parents, we spend a lot of time at one of her apartments. Here's the issue, my girlfriend likes to walk around the home barely wearing anything, which is fine, awesome even, but she does this even when the help are around. For example, last month her family hired her a new driver for her. He stopped by the apartment to introduce himself. She was only wearing underwear. Keep in mind, this is the first time they've met in person. I felt awkward, he was visibly awkward, and she didn't give a shit at all. She was casually chatting to him while scrolling away on her phone. She does this all the time. She doesn't think she needs to wear any decent amount of clothes at all when people that work for her are around. She will casually walk around wearing just a thong or a tiny crop top. Just a crop top, nothing else. She even does this with complete strangers. One time she opened the door for a delivery guy wearing only a see-through gown. You could see everything. Afterwards I talked to her about it and she was utterly confused as to why I felt uncomfortable. Then she laughed and told me to stop being a jealous baby. She even said that I'm being unreasonable. We had another discussion about this yesterday and I told her that she probably wouldn't feel comfortable if I did the same. She said that she doesn't understand why I care, what her staff think, and that it never even crossed her mind that this is inappropriate. She told me that she only does this in the comfort of her home and not in front of actual people. I.e. people that don't work for her. She got kinda mad at me and vented to her friends. According to all of them, I'm weird for having a problem with this and an arsehole for telling my girlfriend to cover up. Somehow, I'm the villain of the story. Am I really the arsehole? And we're going to start off with some comments straight away on this one from your little birdie who says, why are you with someone who thinks the help aren't real people? She sounds incredibly self-centered and inconsiderate to treat people who work for her like their feelings don't matter at all. Adding the not the arsehole judgment here. Real Shannon says not the arsehole, she sounds classist as fuck. If she believes being naked or semi-nude in front of people is wrong, and it sounds like she does, then she doesn't believe these people are actually people. Crystal Queen 3000 says not the arsehole. First of all, it seems that she doesn't view the people that work for her in any capacity as actual people, which is the next level of what the fuck. She also doesn't seem to see that it is grossly inappropriate to be practically naked in front of them. Don't get me wrong, I'm all about body positivity and I think her level of comfort she has with her own body is awesome, but she should absolutely cover up a little more when there are people over. And one more from Greedy Text 1251 who says not the arsehole. When she gets sued for sexual harassment, she'll understand that she was wrong. And basically, I can't disagree with any of those comments that were just said. She does sound classist as hell the way she talks about, her staff. And it is wrong, whilst someone did say, having that sort of body positivity is an absolute fantastic thing. But to be subjecting that onto her staff members is wrong in my opinion. And I'm going to be very interested to know how he approaches this in the update, so we're going to move straight over there right now. Some thoughts on my Am I the Arsehole post. I didn't expect my post to blow up the way it did, however it gave me much to think about and I decided to have another discussion with her. I brought up a lot of the great points that were raised in the thread and she just didn't understand why her actions were inappropriate. In fact, she thought it was bizarre that I seemed to care what her staff think. Here's the fundamental difference. When we were in a room with, let's say, her maid, I believe there to be 3 people in the room. She just thinks it's the 2 of us. This brings me to my next point. I didn't mention this in my Am I the Asshole post due to the rules. However, she has no problem doing anything, and I mean anything, in front of them. This was a big issue at the start because I had to tell her that I'm uncomfortable being intimate when there are people around. Once again, she didn't get why I'd feel uncomfortable but stopped doing it. Anyway, during our discussion, she accused me of having a misogynistic viewpoint. She claimed that I'm offended by the female body outside of a sexual context. On top of that, she once again accused me of being jealous. I told her that it's fucked up to subject people to a naked body without their consent, especially if they're not people that directly work in her home, e.g. delivery drivers or her new personal driver who has already seen her butt naked. I even explained that it's not really safe to do so. She laughed and asked me what's going to happen. Then she said they can't have her anyway, so what am I worried about? The conversation went nowhere. I don't believe she'll change her mind, and after really thinking about it, I realized that she most likely doesn't view me as an equal, as someone from a disadvantaged background. Lost parents early, financial struggles, no stability. This is all very personal to me. Yes, she finds me attractive and doesn't hide me away, but I don't think that counts for much. I have much more in common with the people she deems inferior. If they're invisible to her, then I am too in some ways. Don't get me wrong, I love her and love spending time with her. It's probably hard to believe, but she's very sweet and caring. However, I don't think I'll continue this relationship, not unless she changes her mindset at least. One last thing, I'd like to clarify that I'm not a sex worker or a cop or a gigolo. Had to Google that one. I'm also not a private investigator or a sugar baby. Gee whiz, and that update didn't help matters at all, did it? That the fact that she just sort of said her attitude is that you can do whatever you want and they're not treating staff members as real humans. They're just not there. They're nobodies that you can do whatever you want in front of them. It's absolutely disgusting to me. But what are your thoughts on this one? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you for spending 20 to 30 minutes with me today, getting involved in the stories. I really value your time, and I really hope you know that too. Thank you for your love, your support, and your time, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.
Yeah, man, I remember being so naive when life was good, weather and palm trees. Back in the day, you were everything I need. But then along came a time when you crushed my dreams. Oh yeah, you played me like a fool when you made me believe that the line between love wasn't thick enough to read. Oh yeah, you see we in despair, crime everywhere. You're selling false hope.